Hi guys, my name is JC. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by. Please do what to hit on the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new sewing tutorial. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful top you are seeing right on your screen. If it's what you would like to learn, kindly watch till the end. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using 2 yards of crepe fabric and also got the lining of 2 yards. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to place my tape from the tip of my pattern paper. And I'm going to measure downwards to 2 inches. Then I'll make a mark there and I'm going to square across. Then I'll label that line my shoulder line. After marking my shoulder line, I'm going to place my tape on my shoulder line and I'm going to measure downwards to 10 inches, which is my bust line. Then I'll make a mark on that 10 inches and I'll use my ruler to square across. I'm going to level that line my bust line. Going back to my shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. So I'm just going to place my tape on my center front and I'm going to mark 8 inches on my shoulder line. On that point where I marked 8 inches, I'm going to come downwards by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope. And I'm also going to mark my neck width of 4 inches. After which, I'm going to use my ruler to connect from the neck width to the 1.5 inches I measured for my shoulder slope. After marking my shoulder slant, I'm going to place my tape on the 1.5 inches I came down by and I'm going to measure downwards to 7.3 inches. This 7.3 inches is my armhole depth. So I'm going to make a mark at that 7.3 inches. Then I'm going to use a straight ruler to connect from shoulder slope down to the 7.3 inches, just like the way I'm doing in the video. Now I'm going to draw my armhole curve. To do this, I'm going to find the midpoint of my armhole line or my armhole length. That is the straight line that I drew from my shoulder slope to the 7.3 inches. So on that midpoint, I'm going to come in by half inch. Then on the point where this straight line ends, I'm going to mark the quarter of my bust circumference. That's my bust circumference divided by 4 inches. And I'm going to mark it here. Then I'll use my curve ruler to connect from this quarter of my bust circumference to this half inch I came in by, then to the 1.5 inches I came down by for my shoulder slope, just like the way I'm doing in the video. After I've drawn my armhole curve, I'm going to place my tape on my shoulder line and I'm going to measure downwards to 16 inches. This 16 inches is my half length on my waistline. So I'll make a mark on that 16 inches and I'm going to use my ruler to square across and I'll label this my half length. Then I'm also going to place my tape on my half length and I'm going to measure downwards to 9 inches, which is my hip line. So I'll make a mark on that 9 inches and I'll square across and I'll label that my hip line. After that, I'm going to start imputing my horizontal measurements. So on my bust line, I'm going to mark quarter of my bust circumference and I'll do the same on my waistline and on my hip line. After that, I'm going to mark my dart intake. So on my bust line, I'm going to mark 3.5 inches. That is my nipple to nipple measurement. So I mark 3.5 inches on my bust line and I'm also going to mark 3.5 inches on my waistline and on my hip line. And after which I'm going to connect with a straight line just like this. Placing my tape on my half length, I'm going to mark 6 inches downwards on my dart line. And I'm also going to mark half inches on both sides of my waist dart line. Then after that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect from the dart line on my bust line to the half inches I mark on both sides, then to the 6 inches I came downwards, just like the way I'm doing. After marking this normal dart, I'm going to place my tape on my bust line on the side front and I'm going to mark 2 inches downwards. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect from that 2 inches I marked on my side front to my dart line on the bust line. That is the 3.5 inches I marked on my dart line, just like the way I'm doing in the video. So this is my bust dart. So I'm going to give you a little explanation on this bust dart. Though it's not compulsory, but it helps to give the clothes more fitting, especially at the bust area. And I usually add it when the front and the back half length is not the same. My front half length is 16 inches while my back half length is 14 inches, so minusing it is 2 inches. So most of the time it's usually 1.5 or 2 inches. And it also helps with zipper bulge. I made a full tutorial on how to draft the basic bodies, and I explained this side darts better. So I'm going to be dropping the link in the description box below. You can click the link to watch the full video. After marking my bust dart, I'm going to draw my bust circle. To do this, I'm going to place my compass on the 3.5 inches I marked on my bust line. So I'm going to just place it there, and I'm going to draw a circle round like this. But if you don't have a compass, what you just do is to place your tape on that 3.5 inches marked on your bust line. That is where this compass is. Now you're going to place your tape there. You're going to keep marking 3.5 inches round, and later after which you're going to connect with your pencil, and it's going to form a circle just like this one. After drawing my bust circle, I'm going to find my under bust line. To do this, I'm going to place my tape on my half length, and I'm going to measure upwards to my under bust circle just like the way I'm doing. So for my half length to my under bust mine was 2.3 inches. So I'm going to keep marking that 2.3 inches like this. And after making a mark, I'm going to use my ruler to square across, and I'm going to label this line my under bust line. The next thing I'm going to do is to tighten my under bust. To do this, I'm going to mark half inches from this point. This point I'm touching now, that is the dart leg on my under bust. I'm going to mark half inches from there on both sides like this, and I'm going to use my ruler to connect from my bust point to that half inches I came in by to the dart leg on my half length, just like this. After tightening my under bust, I'm going to add all the allowances I need. I'm going to extend this armhole line, and I'm going to add 1 inch for my sewing allowance, and I'm also going to add 1 inch on my bust line, on my under bust line, half length, and on my hip line. This 1 inch is my sewing allowance. I'm going to replace the dart intake I took on the half length and on the under bust. I'm going to replace it, but for now I'm just going to connect this 1 inch sewing allowance I added. You can add yours now before connecting. Then I'm going to find the midpoint of my shoulder slant. I'm going to make a mark on the midpoint of my shoulder slant. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect from that midpoint to my bust point like this. If you notice, I use a slightly curved part of my ruler to connect this so that it will not be pointing on my bust point. And after connecting, I'm going to cut this out. So guys, I want to transfer this bust dart to my shoulder. So I'm no longer going to have bust darts. I want this cloth to have shoulder dart. So what I'm going to simply do is to close my shoulder dart, to close my bust dart like this, so that I can get the midpoint of my bust dart. So I'll close it like this, and I'm going to press it down so that when I open it, I can see the midpoint. Then I'm going to draw that midpoint. I'm going to use my ruler to draw that mark that I made like this. Then I'll use my scissors to cut it open. So while cutting, you have to be careful so that it will not pass the bust point. So just cut it and stop at the bust point like this. After cutting open your bust dart, you're going to also cut open the shoulder. That is that line that you drew on the shoulder. You're going to cut it open so that you'll be able to close your bust dart without any stress. Then use your masking tape to hold it down like this. So guys, with this, you have successfully transferred your bust dart to your shoulder. So you no longer have a bust dart, you're having a shoulder dart. So You're just going to, the next thing you're going to do now is to cut this. So I'm showing you guys how we're going to cut it. So for the side front, you're going to cut it like this. You're going to cut it like this. And for the center front, you're going to cut it like this as well. So just watch closely and see how I did this cutting. And after cutting, make sure you label it properly so you won't be confused. So I was done cutting it and this is what it looks like. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to get another pattern paper. I'm going to get another pattern paper and I'm going to fold it into two. Then I'll place my center front on it like this and I'm going to recut it on fold. I'm going to recut this center front pattern on fold. After cutting it, I'm going to open it up and this is what it looks like. For the side front, I'm also going to cut another piece for the side front. Now I have two pieces for the side front. I'm cutting all this because of the neckline, because if you notice, I didn't cut the neckline while I was drafting. So I'm cutting this because of the neckline of this outfit. It has a kind of slanted asymmetric neckline. So I'm just going to place it like this. Then I'm going to use my masking tape to hold it down. Then I'm going to measure 6 inches downwards. I'm going to measure 6 inches downwards and I'll make a mark there. So I'm going to place my tape on the point where my shoulder slant started from. You can see where the shoulder slant started from. I'm going to place my tape there and I'm going to mark 8 inches. Remember that when we were drafting, we marked 4 inches for our neck width. So I'm going to mark 8 inches because 4 plus 4 is 8. And that is because this center front is no longer on fold. So I'm going to mark 8 inches. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect from that 6 inches I came down by to the point where my shoulder slant started from. And I'm going to cut it out like this. This is what it looks like after cutting it out. After cutting the neckline, the next thing I'm going to do is to draft the collar. And I'm drafting this collar separately. So what I'm going to do is to close the shoulder dart of this part. I'm going to close the shoulder dart and I'm going to use my masking tape to hold it down. After closing this shoulder, I'm going to mark 3.5 inches on this shoulder. And I'm also going to mark half inch for joining of the down part, making it 4 inches. So I'm going to place my tape on the shoulder and I'm going to mark 4 inches. I'm going to mark 4 inches. Then I'm going to mark 10 inches downwards. That is my bust point. I'm going to mark 10 inches downwards and I'm going to use my ruler to connect from this 4 inches I marked on my shoulder to the 10 inches I marked downwards like this. Then I will also connect from these 6 inches to these 10 inches that I marked on my bust. After that, I'm going to place a paper underneath and I'm going to use my tracing wheel to trace it out. After tracing it out, you're going to remove your pattern and you're going to add a half inch round. You're going to add half inch for sewing allowance and you're also going to label it properly. After cutting that collar, I'm going to work on the down part of this front pattern. To do this, I'm going to place the three pieces together like this, and I'm going to use my masking tape to hold it down. Then I'm going to place another pattern paper of about 5 inches long on this down part. Then also use my masking tape to hold it down. After masking it down, I'm going to place my tape on this part, and I'm going to come down by 4 inches. I'm going to come down by 4 inches. I'll make a mark there. After marking the 4 inches, I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect it like this. I'm also going to connect from this side, from this other side, to meet that 4 inches I marked. So depending on the design you want, or depending on your creativity, you can do any design on you want on that down part. You can make it scallop, you can make it to have a V shape, be different depending on what you want. Actually play with your design on that down part to make it stylish. And after marking out, I'm going to add half inch. I'm going to add half inch for turning with my lining. After adding the half inch, I'm going to cut it out. So after cutting it out, this is what it looks like. When cutting on my fabric, I'm going to add half inch for the joining of these front pieces together. So that is all for the drafting of this front pattern. If you don't understand any part, you can play the video back to watch it again. But if you have any question, you can drop it in the comment section. I'll gladly respond to all your questions. Now we're going to be drafting the back pattern. So the first thing you're going to do is to place your tape on the tip of your pattern paper. You're going to measure downwards to 2 inches. You make a mark there and square across, and you also label that your shoulder line. Then I'm going to place my tape on my shoulder line, and I'm going to measure downwards to 10 inches. This 10 inches is my bust line. I'll make a mark there and I'll square across. And I'll also label that line my bust line. Still placing my tape on my shoulder line, I'm going to measure that waist to 14 inches, which is my half length. And I'll also mark my hip line, which is 9 inches from my half length. So I'll make a mark there and I'm going to square across. Then I'll go ahead and label these lines, my half length and my hip line. Back on my shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. On the point where I marked 8 inches, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches for my shoulder slope. Then I'll also mark 4 inches for my neck width. Then I'll use my ruler to connect from my neck width to the shoulder slope. Then I'm going to place my tape on that 1.5 inches that I came down by, and I'm going to mark my armhole length, which is 7.3 inches. So I will make a mark at 7.3 inches. Then I'll also mark quarter of my bust circumference. Then use my straight ruler to connect from my shoulder slope down to the 7.3 inches armhole length that I marked. Then I'm going to find the midpoint of that straight line. On that point, I'm going to come in by half inch. Then I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect from the shoulder slope to the half inch I came in by to the quarter of my bust circumference that I marked, just like how we did for the front pattern. Now I'm going to start marking my horizontal measurement. So on my bust line, I'm going to divide my bust circumference by 4 inches, and I'm going to mark it on my bust line. And I also do the same for my half length. On my half length line, I'm marking my quarter of my waist circumference, and on my hip line, I'm marking the quarter of my hip circumference as well. Now for the dart intake, I'm going to mark 3.5 inches on my bust line, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. So I'm going to mark it on my bust line, and I'm also going to mark it on my half length and on my waistline. Then I'll connect with a straight line. So just like how we did for the front, I'm going to come downwards by 6 inches from my half length. I'm going to come down by 6 inches. Then I'll make a mark there. And I'm also going to come upwards by 6 inches from my half length also. I'll come upwards by 6 inches. Then on my half length, I'm going to come in by half inch on both sides of the dart line. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect from the 6 inches I marked upwards to the half inch I marked both sides to the 6 inches I marked downwards, just like the way I'm doing in the video. I came upwards by 6 inches because the back dart is usually longer than the front dart. Then at the center back on the half length line, I came in by ½ inch for zipper bulge. Then I connected it to the shoulder line and to my hip line. For my shoulder dart at the back, I'm going to find the midpoint of my shoulder slant. I'm sorry, the camera was not capturing the shoulder at the back. So I'm going to find the midpoint of my shoulder slant. Then I'm going to connect it to this dart line like this. After that, I'm going to replace the dart intake on my half length. I'll replace it on the side back. Then for the down part, I'm going to come downwards by 4 inches. So I'll mark 4 inches on the center back, and I'm going to use my ruler to connect from the side back to the center back like this. Now after that, I'm going to add 1 inch for my sewing allowance. So I'm adding 1 inch on the armhole line, on the bust line, half length, and my hip line. After doing this, I'm going to connect this with my ruler. So I need to quickly show you guys something. I brought the front side pattern and I took the measurement of the allowance part. This is the allowance part, not the joining part. So I took the measurement of the allowance part. It was giving me 14.3 inches or thereabout. It was 14.3 inches. So despite the fact that the half length of the front is longer than the half length of the back, it was still the same with the side back. So after cutting the fabrics, when you are joining it, none is going to be longer. It's going to align, like it's going to be the same. And this is because we have closed the side darts. So I'm going to add ½ inch on the down part for turning with my lining, and after that I'm going to cut this out, and that will be all for the drafting of this back pattern. After cutting it out, make sure you label it properly. And for the neckline, you can do whatever neck depth you want. I marked 4 inches. Sorry, the camera did not capture while I was marking the neckline. So I marked 4 inches for the depth and 4 inches for the width. So it's just a basic neckline. Guys, I didn't record while I was cutting this on my fabric because my phone was really down. So I had to cut this off camera. But while cutting on your fabric, the only thing you're going to do is to add ½ inch. The ½ inch is for joining the pieces together, that is the front pieces and the back pieces together. For the zip side, I added 1 inch. I also added ½ inch on the neckline for turning of the neckline. And that is all for the drafting and cutting of this top. So in the next video, I'm going to share with you guys how I join these pieces together. Guys, if you find this video helpful, please hit on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Also like and drop a comment. This is a way of encouraging and supporting me, and I really appreciate if you do that for me. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.